Hello everyone. It's a small room, so I'm probably going to sit and talk. So before we start, good morning to everyone. Super excited to be here, and it's really great to see everyone. So first off, a huge shout out to the amazing organizers, the FOSSASIA team. Great effort in putting together such an amazing event, and to the sponsors, and of course to all of you for making this event happen. Okay, so yeah, today we're going to talk something super important when it comes to going global, web accessibility, internationalization, and localization. So chances are, like, many of you have previously worked with these in some of your projects or side hobbies. But if you have not, no worries, we're going to take it super slow today. We're going to start off with some basics as well. So we're going to also look at how these pieces fit together and why they are a key to creating a truly inclusive experiences for users everywhere. So one of my very first introduction to accessibility was through this statement shared by Cindy Lee during her keynote on inclusive design. So we are all just temporarily abled. So this is a very simple statement, but a very powerful one, which highlights that at some points in our lives, we will need our surroundings to be a little more accommodating than they usually are. So now to help all of you relate to what I mean here, so how many of you can easily read this? It's a small room, so I was expecting a bigger room and people may be squinting at the back to properly read this, but yeah, okay. How about this one? So if we change the language entirely, so this is Japanese. How about now? Probably no one here can read this. Okay, so these are all the same statements, but either written with a poor color, poor font color, or translated into a different language. So the point I'm trying to make here is that many of us would consider ourselves in this room to be fully abled with no form of disability. So you may perhaps have the same level of challenge in understanding or reading this kind of statements written on the screen. So accessibility, when we talk about accessibility, it is not just designing for a specific subgroup of people, such as with permanent visual or motor challenges, such as someone who cannot see or cannot hear at all. It's about designing for everyone, including our future selves. So this statement serves as a powerful reminder that our needs can change over time. Whether it's due to injury, it could be a temporary injury or a permanent injury, it could be any form of illness, or a natural aging, or even situational contexts, like being in a noisy environment or being in outside in the sun where it's hard for you to see your phone, for example. So designing with accessibility in mind ensures that we are prepared for those kind of moments in our own lives. So we have to consciously build products and experiences that empower every individual, ensuring inclusivity for all. So quickly jumping into a little bit about me. So my name is Sahil and I work as a front-end tech lead for Mercari in Tokyo, Japan. For those of you don't know, Mercari is a peer-to-peer or a C2C e-commerce service within Japan. So I am originally from India, now based in Japan for over 5 years now. So if you use Twitter or X, you can find me using @505 Sahil. Okay, so jumping into basics a little bit. So I'm sure many of you here have heard various definitions of what accessibility means. I personally really love and connect with this definition, which is understanding different capabilities of your potential customers or your potential users and designing within those constraints. So in short, it helps to convey that knowing your users or customers is the key in general, and you want to understand their capabilities, what they are capable of, what are their skill sets, and what are their constraints, and when designing or creating for them, work towards the technology from there and not the other way around. So so what are some of the key principles when we talk about accessibility? So W3C is Web Accessibility Initiative, also known as WAI, has helped to break down these into 4 key and simple principles. So for content and applications to be truly accessible, they should be number 1, perceivable. So perceivable here means that information shouldn't be invisible to the users. It should be accessible through one or more senses. Number 2 is operable. So users should be able to interact with the interface, whether it's clicking links, filling out forms, or navigating menus. Number 3 is understandable. Contents and interactions should be clear and easy to grasp. And finally, we have robust. So everything should work consistently even when using assistive technologies such as screen readers or voiceovers on your mobile application. So when discussing disability, we often limit our thinking to something that is, permanent in nature, such as, inability to speak or see. I like to call it also as a medical model of disability. While this perspective is not entirely wrong, it can be limiting, so causing us to overlook a huge number of people. So what often gets left out is what I call as social model of disability, so which shifts our focus to society and the environment. So in this view, disability isn't just about a person's condition, it's about how well the world around them meets their needs. And this is where technology, especially digital tools like web applications or mobile applications, play a huge role, and it can help to break down barriers, or it can entirely create new ones for you if we are not careful about the accessibility part. So the choices we make as developers, product managers, designers, or even creators directly impact how inclusive and accessible our world becomes. So let's try to relate to this a little bit more. So for someone who cannot touch, we often tend to only think of someone who might have only one arm, for instance, which I described earlier as a medical model of disability. So this is what I am kind of classifying here as a permanent disability. What we often knowingly and unknowingly neglect is any form of temporary disability, such as someone recovering from an arm injury, for instance, or a situational disability such as a new parent. And similar concept can be extended to someone who cannot see, for instance. We often tend to think of someone who is blind. What often gets left out is someone who might have an eye infection or a cataract, for instance, or someone just stepping out in the sun and cannot properly see colors not having proper contrast on your mobile application. Similarly, for someone who cannot speak, we often tend to think of someone who is non-verbal entirely. We often neglect someone with laryngitis or a throat infection, or someone who has a heavy accent or speaks a foreign language, for example. Similar concept can be extended to someone who cannot hear. We tend to ignore someone recovering from an ear infection, or someone in a very noisy environment, such as a bartender. All right, let's move on to internationalization. So to define internationalization, it's about designing your application's architecture so it can be easily adapted to different cultures, regions, or languages. So since we are focusing more on the product and the application development part today, let's explore how we can make this happen using React.js, which is one of the most widely used JavaScript frameworks out there. So let's dive into a few open source React libraries that can help us achieve the internationalization in our applications. So these tools not only will help you manage translations, but also handle various intricate details like date, numbers, and currency formatting, which can differ from region to region or country to country. So first we have is React I18 Next. This is from I18 Next itself, and this is a popular library that integrates seamlessly with your React code bases. It offers a flexible API for handling translations and language switching, making it easier for you to build applications catering to global needs. We also have a similar solution for your Next.js applications, which might requires translations to be built on the server side. And lastly, we have on the right is React INTL, which is one of my personal favorites because it doesn't just offer translation solutions, it offers various other intricacies that I was talking about earlier, date formatting, number formatting, and currency formatting on top of that. So all of these tools and libraries are open source and community driven. So if you're interested, I would recommend you to have a look at these and try to integrate in your projects. All right, talking about localization. So while internationalization is about setting up the architecture of your application, localization is where the real adaptation happens. So it's about fine-tuning your application for a specific culture, region, or a language. Ensuring not just translations, but also things like date, formats, currencies, and even design elements like icons are adapted to a specific culture or a region. So there are countless localization aspects which I don't want to cover everyone in today's session, but these are some of them I've listed here. So breaking down some of them into key aspects, we have language and content, where we have text translations, ensuring the cultural relevance so that the message resonates with the target audience. For design and user interface, we have text expansion. So in different languages, text can expand unexpectedly. So our UI should be able to handle those kind of expansions. We have bidirectionality. So most of us are only familiar with languages which are written from right to left, for example, Thai or English or Japanese, for instance. But there are languages such as Arabic, which is written from left to right. So our UI and front end should be able to handle those kind of direction changes as well. For regional standards, we have date and time formats, currencies, and measurement units. And for support, as we can imagine, we need to adapt our customer support to be able to support regional requirements and also data handling and privacy and legal laws. So now looking a little bit into text translation. So there are a bunch of ways you can maintain the translation in your services. So a common approach and an easy to use approach is a JSON key value pair, where each language, so for instance, you can see on the left we have English, Japanese, and Hindi. We have some keys for these languages. So this kind of a translation format keeps things structured for your application if you're serving a global customer base. but there are also amazing translation management systems out there that can be utilized for maintaining these strings. So phrase and localize are some of my favorite tools, which can cater to some large and complex code bases if you have those kind of requirements. So please look into these if you're interested. And how to make those kind of translations available in your entire code base is another kind of challenge. So there are different ways to integrate these into your React code base. So some of the libraries I shared earlier, IAT Next, does that for you from ground up. But one custom approach is to use this kind of a translation context provider, which basically wraps around your application. And this basically exposes a use translate function, which can be consumed by different components within your application. And you just need to pass in the key name to get the translation for that particular key. So this is a simple example. If you have a very easy use case, I would recommend you to take this approach. And talking a little bit about date and time formats, which is another aspect of localization. So as I said earlier, date and time formats can be different across regions, and I personally find it really frustrating when I do not see dates being localized nicely in an application or a service. So for instance, to give you an example, this is how dates are generally written or interpreted in Japan. And this is how it's written and interpreted in India and in the United States. So you see how this is very different, and it can cause a lot of confusion among your customers or users. So now dates are really hard to work with. I personally find it very challenging, especially if you write JavaScript, you know the trouble. Again, like there are some various nice open source libraries and tools out there. JSINTL is one of the native API provided by browsers. You can directly use it within your React code base. And we have Luxin by Moment, which provides a lot of utilities on top of the native INTL functionalities to manage date in your application. We also have DateFNS. I have never used DateFNS personally, but it's also one of the community recommended library out there. So please check them out if you're interested. Now, another aspect that I touched upon earlier is bidirectionality. So I believe most of us have interacted with left to right based UIs generally, because we tend to interact with languages such as English or Japanese or Thai, for example, which are left to right written. So whereas some are read from right to left, Arabic is one such language. And it is quite important that our UI interface in the application can accommodate for that. So as you see here now, the layout of the application changes from if the language is written right to left. So now there are a couple of handy things or easy to take approaches that you can take in your code base. So first basic one is the HTML dir attribute, which is I think short for direction. So you can use this particular attribute to flip any of the non-direction specific content in your application. So by non-direction specific content, I mean any kind of text or any kind of grid, for example. So for any direction specific content, such as, if you want to add a margin to the left or if you want to add a margin to the right, we have some CSS utilities out there that can be utilized. So I have listed two of them here. One is by Casey Dodds, which is RTL CSS.js. It's, I believe, a runtime CSS in JS utility library, and another one is a utility-based RTL CSS, which generates CSS files, I believe, during the build time of your application. So these also can be utilized to handle some of the direction-specific bidirectionality requirements for your application. Okay, so a little bit less technical. Let's talk about Disney. So I'm not sure how many of you have watched the Inside Out movie. Has anyone watched the Inside Out movie here? Okay. Yes. So yeah, great catch. So there's a fascinating detail in the movie. So in one of the scenes, Riley, which is the character's name here, doesn't like the vegetables offered to her. So in the US version of the movie, which is, I believe, on the left-hand side, the vegetable used is broccoli, which many of the American kids tend to dislike. But in the Japanese version, which is on the right, we used green bell peppers, which is generally more disliked by children in Japan. So this is a small change, but this is a brilliant example of how localization works and how you can make your content that you put on internet or on the web feel more personal to the customers or users. So now here I have a small snippet of the code. So I have a small component called a dog component, and this is basically rendering an image of dog playing in the park. So can anyone spot what could be improved with this component in terms of localization and internationalization? Correct. Great catch. Yeah. So the alt text is kind of hard-coded in the English language. So as some of you who might know, screen readers rely on alt text to basically read what the image is telling to the users who cannot see, for instance. So for a user who cannot understand English, it will be very hard for them to understand what image is trying to convey. So this is basically a tiny aspect of what kind of internationalization and localization approaches you can take in your applications. Sorry. Okay, so let's try to look at the intersection of internationalization and accessibility. So both these concepts rely on separation of concern. So, but adapting to a specific region through internationalization or ensuring accessibility in isolation is sometimes not sufficient. So, for instance, consider a application primarily designed for users in Japan trying to expand globally. So the needs of an elderly user in Japan would be very different from the needs of a blind user, for example, in Thai or in India. So the intersection can feel quite overwhelming or complicated, but this is where analyzing some of the key scenarios can become essential. So the user needs differ widely across demographics, and understanding how they intersect can drastically change the number and type of scenarios you need to consider. So this basically, I'm trying to visualize what intersection might look like when you think about accessibility and internationalization together for your services or applications. So the bottom right quadrant here is the intersection. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. Some of us might have products that might have billions of user scenarios, for example, So I work for Mercari, and I have close to 1,000 user scenarios which I need to take care of whenever I release a small feature, for instance, right? So when you are thinking about internationalization or accessibility for your services or applications, I would recommend you to start small. Think of some of the key scenarios for the application. So it could be something as simple as users are able to sign up to an application. Users are able to purchase a product on your application, for instance. And start from that so that you can ensure you are addressing the most impactful areas at first. Yeah, so that will be all from my side for today. Thank you for being an amazing audience, and I will take any questions if you may have.
So if I can ask the first question, so the implementation of internationalization, right? I would assume you will not, to render a page, you are not going to load up all the various permutations of every language. And you're going to do this real time, right? How do you make sure that the asynchronous, I'm going to assume again, is not server side, you are rendering this async from the client side. How do you make sure that this async implementation does not cause the UI to kind of, what's the word for it? Like it doesn't get re-rendered, right? Because I think in Google, when they do ranking, they actually are very particular about this.
Right, so great question. So there are a couple of ways to handle this. One is, as you may have noticed, applications redirect you based on the region you are in. For example, if you are in a Thai-based region, it could be /th in front of the application URL, or it could be /en. So that makes sure that non-related contents are not loaded when you're trying to access the website. So about the re-rendering part, it happens predominantly at the CDN layer. So when CDN is trying to build up your application, it tries to register a cookie, which can be utilized to make sure that only the related assets or files are loaded when the application page is rendered, and not unnecessarily files are re-rendered or loaded, for instance.
But you still get the re-rendering, right? You still, right? Because your tags are all popping up async, right? As you load the translated, you send the text ID and then you get the translator text. So that sometimes changes the rendering of your boxes.
Right. So you can easily handle that by figuring out the loading priority of the page elements, for instance. So my responsibility when rendering a page is not to render everything in the first go, because that is very not performant for the user's network or data, for example. I would just like to render the first view. And that can be achieved by lazy loading the bottom part. So this, I believe, is a good technique to ensure that performance is kept for your application and the users. Yeah.
All right, thanks for sharing, Sahil. Let's give another round of applause.
Hello. Can I ask one more question? Yeah. So mainly I want to ask about the testing strategy to enforce this accessibility in the company level, because right now I'm working in design system, right? And in design system we're working with the smallest component, example input or button, text link. We're also working with the color contrast, hover state, interaction state, and also the icons as well need to be like RTR, RTL. But the problem is start when we deploy our framework for our customers and they try to compose these design systems, and not everyone like really aware of how to use the accessibility stuff, and then it start broke in the best level. So what is the best way, like, for everyone able to, like, basically enforce this accessibility or testing strategy for the company? Yeah.
So if I understand your question correctly, you want to make sure that the compliance level you want to follow, for instance. Yeah. So are you aware of WCAG guidelines? So the latest one is, I believe, 2.2 AA and AAA. So Mercari as a company tries to comply with WCAG 2.2 AA guidelines. And we have some CI/CD requirements and testing setup in our code bases. And we have also trained our designers and developers to follow those guidelines when developing and when designing, so that we make sure that entire product life cycle is aware of the accessibility requirements. So it happens from the design phase to the development and to the shipping phase. And for regressions, we have, as I said, we have set up CI/CD, and we inform users early when we break any kind of rule or any kind of guideline in our deployment and the release pipelines. Yeah.
Do you actually test it at the CI/CD level, or you just get the production regularly?
We test it during the development itself, because we want to inform as early as possible to the developers. So whenever they create a PR, we run the compliance rules and the guidelines on the PR itself. Yeah. Otherwise, we tend to always have some important priority stuff coming up, so these kind of things get deprioritized usually.